What's up, Vikings Nation? Welcome back to Report Vikings. I'm Victor, and today's video is one of those that really makes you stop and think about where this team is headed in 2026. Because just when it felt like the Vikings finally got some stability, another storm might be forming. We all breathed a huge sigh of relief when Brian Flores signed his extension. No more wondering if the defense was about to be ripped apart. No more panic about replacing one of the best defensive minds in football. But here's the thing. Keeping Flores doesn't mean the danger is gone. Now, the spotlight shifts to the assistant coaches, and there's one name in particular should have every Vikings fan paying attention. This name is set to have his 5th interview of this coaching cycle, and this time it's with the Washington Commanders for their defensive coordinator job. 5th interview, let that sink in. That's not coincidence. That's the league telling you this guy is legit. He has been a huge part of what Brian Flores has built in Minnesota. He understands the system, develops defensive backs, and helps translate Flores' aggressive, complex scheme onto the field. Losing him wouldn't just hurt, it would be a major blow to Flores' continuity, especially after finally locking him in for 2026. And here's the scary part. If this potential assistant coach actually comes back after 5 interviews, that would be the surprise. That's how real this threat is. So while the Vikings are trying to keep their defensive brain trust intact, there's another massive challenge looming right around the corner. In just 8 weeks, Minnesota enters full off-season mode for 2026, and this roster has more holes than it did a year ago. The cap situation is tight, the margin for error is thin, and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah doesn't have the luxury of throwing money around like he did in 2025. One of the biggest red flags? Running back. The Vikings desperately need youth at that position. Enough with aging legs, injury-prone bodies, and short-term fixes. This team needs juice. And whether that comes from the draft or from dreaming big in free agency with a name, that decision could shape the entire offense. The Vikings already have a name in their mind. This elite player has averaged 4.5 yards per carry across his career, topped 1,400 rushing yards in 2025, and has proven he can stay healthy since his rookie injury. The problem? He'll likely cost $12 to $15 million per year, money the Vikings simply don't have right now unless they get very creative. So that's where the Vikings stand today. They might lose a key assistant coach who helps make Brian Flores' defense work. They're tight against the cap. They've got major roster needs, and every move they make this offseason has to be precise. Today, we're breaking down what one guy potentially leaving really means and how the Vikings can realistically attack the 2026 offseason without blowing up what they've built. But before we dive in, do me a huge favor. If you love real Vikings talk, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and help Report Vikings hit our goal of 4,000 subscribers. This community keeps growing, and I appreciate every single one of you. All right, let's get into it. Just when we all finally breathed a sigh of relief about Brian Flores coming back, now there's another serious concern flying a little under the radar. The Minnesota Vikings are in real danger of losing one of their most important assistant coaches, and if it happens, it would be a huge blow to Brian Flores and the defensive staff. We're talking about Donte Jones. Today, we're breaking down why Donte Jones is suddenly in massive demand, why losing him would hurt more than people realize, what this means for Flores' defense, and whether the Vikings can actually keep him. But before we get into it, do me a quick favor. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, help us reach our goal of 4,000 subscribers. All right, let's talk about what's really going on behind the scenes. For most of this offseason, the Vikings had the Brian Flores cloud hanging over them. Would he leave? Would he take a head coaching job? Would the defense fall apart? That cloud officially disappeared. Flores signed an extension and the Steelers hired Mike McCarthy instead of Flores. So now, barring a surprise head coaching offer, Brian Flores is back in 2025. That's the good news. The bad news? Now the focus shifts to the assistant coaches. We already know offensive line coach Chris Cooper will be replaced. Defensive line coach Marcus Dixon is taking outside interviews with his contract expiring, and now Donte Jones is suddenly one of the hottest names in the coaching market. Let this sink in. Donte Jones has now been requested to interview with 5 different teams for a defensive coordinator role. Those teams include the Dallas Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers, the New York Giants, the New York Jets, and now the Washington Commanders. That's not random. That's the league telling you this guy is ready. Jones is reportedly interviewing with Washington on Sunday, and if that happens, it will be his 5th interview of this coaching cycle and his 3rd in the NFC East. At some point, opportunity knocks too loud to ignore. Here's what people outside Minnesota might not fully understand. Donte Jones is not just another DB coach. He's the passing game coordinator, the defensive backs coach, and a major part of Brian Flores' weekly game planning. He didn't even start with Flores. Mike Zimmer brought him in back in 2020. Then he left to become LSU's defensive coordinator. After Ed Orgeron was fired, Jones returned to Minnesota in 2022 under Kevin O'Connell. That matters. He's coached multiple systems, multiple schemes, NFL and college, man-heavy and zone-heavy defenses. That versatility is incredibly attractive to teams trying to modernize their defenses. Let's be clear, Brian Flores is the engine of this defense, but Donte Jones is a critical part of how that engine runs smoothly. He helps develop defensive backs, implement coverage disguises, adjust game plans week to week. And remember, Flores' defense is complex. It relies on communication, trust, timing, and elite teaching. Losing Jones would mean replacing a trusted voice, risking regression in the secondary, and more pressure on Flores to micromanage. That's not ideal. Under Flores and Jones, the Vikings secondary has forced turnovers consistently, limited explosive passing plays, improved communication despite constant roster turnover. That doesn't happen by accident, that's coaching. And when a coach gets 5 interviews in one cycle, history tells us one thing: they usually don't come back. This is the big question. Is it possible Donte Jones stays? Sure, but realistically, if he gets offered a defensive coordinator job, especially with real autonomy, it's hard to turn that down. And if Washington offers him that role under Dan Quinn, that would be a major career jump. From the Vikings' perspective, you can't block him, you probably shouldn't block him, and you may not be able to replace him easily. That's the tough part of success. Here's the honest take as a fan. This is a good problem. It means the Vikings are developing coaches the rest of the league wants, but it's also a reminder: sustained success is fragile. You don't just lose players, you lose teachers, leaders, and system builders, and losing Donte Jones would absolutely sting. Now I want to hear from you, Vikings Nation. How worried are you about potentially losing Donte Jones, and do you trust Brian Flores to reload the staff if it happens? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. We are officially less than 2 months away from the start of the 2026 offseason, and let me tell you right now, this one is going to be very different. The Vikings don't have unlimited money anymore. The roster has more holes than it did last year, and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is under real pressure to get this right. So today, we're talking about the Vikings' biggest roster need heading into 2026, why this position can't be ignored anymore, and the most splashy free agent Minnesota could chase if they get bold. But before we dive in, you already know what to do. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, help us hit our goal of 4,000 subscribers. All right, let's talk roster building. In about 8 weeks, the Vikings officially begin building for 2026. Free agency kicks off first. The draft follows about 6 weeks later. And here's the reality: Kwesi has more roster needs now than he did a year ago. Why? Some draft picks haven't developed. Several 2025 free agent signings didn't pan out, and the cap situation has flipped completely. The Vikings have tight cap space, but better draft ammo, and currently 8 draft picks, likely becoming 9 with compensatory picks. That tells you the plan. This is probably going to be a draft-heavy offseason, but there's one position you just can't ignore. Let me say this clearly: the Vikings need a young running back, full stop. The cycle of aging legs, injury-prone bodies, short-term fixes, it's over. This offense has leaned on the passing game every time things get tough, and honestly, that's partly because there's no real trust in the run game. A young back changes that. It adds juice, explosiveness, balance, and it might finally force Kevin O'Connell to commit to a more balanced offense instead of throwing 40+ times whenever the Vikings fall behind. This is where Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has to draft a running back and let it rip. Yes, a rookie back comes with uncertainty, but you know what else it comes with? Energy, fear from defenses, and flexibility for the offense. With the number of picks Minnesota has, it would be malpractice not to address RB early in the draft. Now here's where things get tricky. The Vikings do not have the cap freedom they had in 2025. Kwesi has to get creative just to sign any external free agents, and most likely, Minnesota will be shopping in the bargain bin, young, undervalued player market. That's the smart play. But if the Vikings clear enough space and get a little frisky, there's one name that jumps off the page. Let's talk about Breece Hall. If the Vikings were to dream big in free agency, this is the guy. Since his rookie year injury, Hall has stayed healthy, been consistently productive, proven he can carry an offense, and at running back, availability matters a lot. Breece Hall's NFL production: 2022, 681 yards and 5 touchdowns. 2023, 1,585 yards and 9 touchdowns. 2024, 1,359 yards and 8 touchdowns. 2025, 1,415 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's a 4.5 yards per carry runner for his career. That's not flashy, that's reliable. Put Breece Hall in this offense, behind this line, with Jefferson and Addison stretching the field, that's scary. And let's be real, Vikings fans would love this move. Now here's the issue. Breece Hall is not cheap. We're talking about $12 to $15 million per year, and the Vikings simply don't have that kind of money lying around for a running back, at least not without major restructures, tough roster cuts, or sacrificing depth elsewhere. That's the risk. Running back is important, but overpaying at that position can kill roster flexibility. This is the debate. Do the Vikings play it smart, draft a young running back, keep financial flexibility, or do they go all in, add a proven difference maker, and immediately fix the run game? Neither path is wrong, but with this cap situation, I lean towards draft first, splash later. Now I want to hear from you, Vikings Nation. Would you pay $12 to $15 million a year for Breece Hall? Or do you want the Vikings to draft a young running back and build from there? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new here and help us hit our goal of 4,000 subscribers. This is Victor, and this is Report Vikings. Skol, Vikings Nation, and I'll see you in the next one.